When I finally heard about Ray of Hope, I was living in shelters or in drug houses. I was addicted to crystal meth and using needles and living a criminal lifestyle. You know, always seeking some type of companionship, whether it be through the staff or whether it be through other people from the streets. I started building relationships there, and I started to feel comfortable there.
And as you're chatting, hey, how's it going? What have you been up to today? And then those small conversations can lead into deeper conversations. And over time, you get the opportunity to speak truth and life into their lives, right?
A lot of conversations on where we're from, like background, bikes, a lot of conversation on bikes. He loves bikes, and that developing until he wanted to take a bit of more serious approach to his change and wanting to get out of addiction. And so once he started wanting that change, then our friendship got a little bit deeper, and so we started talking about more serious things, about what we believe in or what's life outside of Ray of Hope.
So I think Derek had probably a rough day on the street. He had been going back and forth, feeling a lot of conviction about where his life is at.
And I remember coming to the Ray of Hope that night, and I had asked Jess, I said, Jess, I really gotta talk to you. I just feel like there's something in my heart I gotta tell you. We then went to the chapel room, had a sit down, and then I proceeded to tell Jess all about my past behaviors and my present behaviors at the time. It was really good. It felt like I didn't have anything to hide anymore.
So he started showing up more to serve, to help, to be involved wherever he could so that he wouldn't be going and doing his lifestyle that he was used to. He saw that he needed to do a change in his life, and so he was working towards that change.
He continued to drive forward in his desire to want to get well, but at the same time it seemed like he was getting deeper into the things that he was into.
When I met Sally, I started to feel like I belong and fit in. I didn't use as much drugs at the time, and she used a lot more. And to sort of fit in, I started using more to keep up with her, to show that I could handle as much drugs as her. I felt like I was invincible. I felt that none of the problems that long-term users had, I would get.
Based on my experience with psychosis, through the guests that we see and through Derek, my experience with it is that they imagine a lot of things that aren't real because of the state that they are in from doing drugs, and whether they're sober or on drugs, it takes over and they start imagining things.
When I'm in one of my psychosis moments, I don't trust anything. And I think I can read into people's minds, or I see an underlying agenda as if they're out to hurt me. It was a very difficult time for me because I couldn't really tell what was real and what was not a lot of the times. So a lot of times I would end up using drugs, and I would get in a fight with Sally or somebody else or something along that lines, or I feel like somebody was coming after me. I would take off and go outside of the city. So I'd walk down a country road for miles and miles and miles.
And now it wasn't completely uncommon for him to disappear for a few days at a time. He would, go back to old ways a bit and then take off for a little while, and then he would resurface. But it had become like a week and a half and leading into 2 weeks, and I knew that there was definitely something that was wrong in that situation. I got on the phone and I called Maplehurst, which is a correction facility in Milton, just to see if he was there, and I called them up, told them I worked for Ray of Hope Community Center, and I was wondering if they had a gentleman by the name of Derek Corliss. They transferred me over to records, and they were able to tell me that yes, he was in the detention center. And so we got in touch with Maplehurst, found out what their visiting hours were, and then we drove down to see him. And the lady at the reception desk said, "Oh, there's no Derek Corliss here." And so Mike and I were very confused, like, what do you mean he's not here? And we've been writing letters to him, we've been talking to him. And so they looked through their own records. In fact, we found out that he had been relocated to OCI, which is the Ontario Correctional Institution in Brampton. And so we were there twice, I believe. Went to see him, and it was towards the end of his release that we started to talk about him going into another addictions program coming out of OCI.
I had a really good talk with one of the people at the jails. She was the treatment coordinator, I guess you could say. We had a real good heart-to-heart talk, and she just really said, Derek, it's time to move forward in your life. You don't want to keep moving back. You don't want to. You know, and just the way she would talk to me, it really hit home. I don't remember the whole conversation, but it really helped me in just making a decision to go for Teen Challenge.
So when we got the text that Derek was back in Kitchener and that he quit doing Teen Challenge, we were worried and wanted to see him first off, to see what kind of state he was in, but kind of discouraged because we knew usually when people leave, they don't go back to their program, they go back into their old life cycle.
My plan was not to go back to drug use, but it was to go back to Kitchener and to be kind of in that lifestyle, but outside of the drug aspect of it. I think that one of the reasons was to get close to my ex, Sally, again. Also to have the friends that I hung out with. Not even an hour off the bus, I was using drugs. And psychosis came right back. It kind of had an awakening moment and realized, yeah, this was real. The psychosis is real. And I was lucky enough to have a friend who pushed me. He come up to me and he said, Derek, what are you doing back? I said, I made a mistake, I left. And he said, phone Teen Challenge.
So now after Teen Challenge, you can see his confidence. You can see that he recognizes that he has value, that he has purpose in his day, that there are things that God has in store for him and plans for him. And that is what life's about. It's about getting up in the morning and having purpose. And so now he's helping other guys going into Teen Challenge. They're calling him and talking to him, and he's sharing his story with them, saying, yeah, man, I get it. I know where you're at. I've been there, I've done that.
So 4 months after Derek graduated, he came up and stayed with me and my wife at our house and for a weekend, and I had a bunch of things planned for him.
Some of it was a surprise. We went out for a long bike ride that day. We had a bonfire that night and invited everybody out to come out and just hang out and talk, and we had a great time. Just reminiscing about some of the things that I had done. I remember telling Mike and Bailey that I never thought I'd be sitting in your house, having breakfast with you or staying the night. I never thought, and that never dawned on me when I was using drugs, right? I thought it would never happen because no one trusts you when you're in that kind of a state, right? And for them to open their house up to me, it impacted me a lot.
And a lot of our folks that come into the community center are estranged from families. They are estranged from friends. They already feel so down on themselves. And so to be able to come in here and to know that they have a place of belonging, to know that they are loved, and to know that they can just come and be, I think that brings a lot of value into people's lives.
They named it perfectly, a ray of hope. It gives you just that little bit of hope to hold on, that somebody there cares about you and that they're willing to back you up through anything.